It's time for Post-Orthodoxy, a show about changing our minds.
Yeah, baby.
With your hosts, Dark and Ainsley Sevier.
Maybe what they believe about reality isn't all of reality.
What?
I know, right?
We're on a mission to have a better time with more people more often.
The question is more, how do you get there?
Post-Orthodoxy explores strongly held beliefs, how those belief systems divide or connect people, and what might be found beyond those reality bubbles.
Keep calm. Don't lose your head.
I've got a piece of chocolate here with me because I got anxiety about doing this.
Welcome to this neighborhood, neighbor.
Yes. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Neighbor.
Thank you so much for being here. We do these shows for you guys. And ourselves. I mean, we're also learning things too.
Welcome to Monday freestyle session.
Oh yeah, it's a little freestyle, but we got to do that every once in a while to kind of shake off the structure of the universe, make sure we're not getting in over our heads or heads up our asses or
Too orthodox.
We don't want to be orthodox about our post-orthodoxiness. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So plus we've blazed through 18 awesome episodes since the beginning of season 2 in mid-April.
Does that include Dave's man cave?
No. I mean, we had some conversations while we were traveling that I didn't count as episodes in my episode count.
Oh, I see. So even more bonus materials.
There's other content out there besides these 18 episodes, and we want there to be even more of that stuff. But yeah, so, you understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm trying to say? We're going to do a recap show. We're going to go back through the stuff that we've done in the last quarter and make sure that you have a one-stop shop to get to know and interact with our cool guests. We want to hear where you guys are talking from, what's changed for you over the weekend or over the last few months. April, May, June, only 2 months, 2, 4, 6, 8. We could do 8 months on, 4 months off. I don't know if I could go 4 months without doing a post-orthodoxy show. What is a podcast season anyway?
I don't know.
We make our own rules.
Yeah, you make your own rules.
I suppose. Yeah. So
I would suggest that almost every show is a recap show.
Okay. Do tell.
All right. I think we tend to say the same thing over and over, but on purpose. I think being post-orthodox, there's the famous, I think it was Himmler, some German architect of the Nazi phenomena, said, repeat a lie 3 times and it's true. You've heard that, right?
I haven't heard that specific phrasing of it, but
what's your phrasing of it? Say it 3 times and it's true. What?
Oh no, I just haven't heard that particular way of saying it. I'm just aware of availability bias. That the more you hear something, the more you're going to assume that's probably the truth, and assume that information that sounds similar to what you already know is probably the truth.
Right.
It makes it really hard for us to naturally move beyond our spheres of awareness.
That's right. I think the Nazis were talking about it before it was called availability bias.
Before it was cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that idea. I feel like we'll just recap. I'll start recapping right now.
Yeah, recap.
There was
what do you want to recap about?
And one point on a previous show, we were talking about the idea of I forgot what we were talking about now.
Well, we could just start from the beginning.
Okay.
If you want to.
Sure.
We have this chat thing in the middle of our window, which we put there because we want to hear from you guys.
Oh, it disappeared.
Well, I put it, okay.
I'm looking at seven seconds in the past.
7 seconds previously, yes. My transitions are not all the smoothest transitions, but I'm not going to be ashamed about that.
I'm not either.
That's me verbalizing that I'm not going to be ashamed because I am actually a little bit ashamed.
What was that? Oh, I was talking about the 3 times and it's true thing. So, Bernie Sanders.
He was really good at that.
I watched Bernie Sanders' campaign and I was like, okay, this guy just says the same damn 4 things over and over and over. And they're the kind of things that most people, if they understood what those things were, would agree that, yeah, maybe we should be dealing with those things.
Right. When you say it like that over and over again, yes, we should all be able to go to the doctor if we need to go to the doctor.
Right. So he just said it over and over and over and over. And I thought, that's slowly like a like a drip or eroding a stone is starting to eat through the other narrative that we can't do those things
It
for
just
blah blah
sucks.
blah. Right.
Dental is just a different story.
So I think I had a fetish as an artist of never saying the same thing again. Like if I've already said it, I just want to move on and say other new things. I don't want to dwell in the past. And I,
Why did you have that fetish?
I got bored of my own stuff.
Oh, even though it's your repeatability that brings a larger and larger audience base to consume whatever it is you're producing.
It was constant morphing.
Anytime an artist changes their vibe, their fan base gets mad.
Fuck you! Do the thing that
I fell in love with you doing.
So
right.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't think it's a Nazi technique. I think this is a common technique. It's the way humans work. It's the way religion works. It's the way politics works. Say things over and over and over, and it just becomes available that you endemic and available that you don't question it because of its availability.
Right.
So yeah, I think we sort of say the same things over and over on the show because we're dealing, I think, with concepts that I didn't hear enough of in my other feeds, like cognitive liberty and various biases such as availability bias, other cognitive biases.
Right. I was lucky enough to have logic training growing up, which I think has really helped structure my mind. And what came first, the chicken or the egg? My affinity for logic and syllogisms and logical fallacy awareness, or logic. Maybe the logic training that I took just shoved that stuff onto my mind, or maybe you know what I'm saying? Like,
no.
What came first? Was I already a person that enjoyed things being logical and organized and sensible, and therefore I took to logic really well and did extra classes in it? Or were all the classes I did in logic, is that why I'm really good at sorting things and see and sort of, you say something and I see it drawn out in my head in a sentence structure with like balancing scales, like weighing your heart in Anubis's scales, and like which parts of this sentence are sound and which parts of the sentence are flaky. Like I just get strong visuals of, anytime somebody makes a statement.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it could be both. Mm-hmm. I think like a duck sees water and it comes out of the egg, is like, oh, that stuff, and it runs over there and does it.
Right. So
you were probably predisposed.
It's like, yay, water.
To take to logic.
Yeah.
And reason.
Well, I will share something new that happened for me since the last time we live streamed. I got myself Chacos.
Durable footwear.
Yeah, footwear that wraps around the back of my foot.
Yeah.
So that I'm not like straining the muscles on the top of my foot to try to keep a flip-flop on or to try to keep a Birkenstock on. And they've got nice wide straps, and there's only like one spot that seems like it's going to probably rub my foot raw first for a little while.
Right.
But I did end up having to get the man-size sandals because even when women's-size sandals are long enough for me, they just assume you just get longer, you don't get larger all around. And, my feet are wide.
Yes.
Big feet. What's something new that happened for you?
When? Since when?
Since like Thursday, I guess, since our last live stream with Krista Kelly.
So many things.
Well, you got a new iPhone.
Yeah, I have a new device.
Mm-hmm. You finally have the phone that can do all the photos.
It's a new camera.
Ooh la la. That's really why we got the giant one. Because it's like your iPhone 8 was working fine.
It's a new camera, and, it was starting to, like... I use it more as a camera than I do anything else, right? So, the camera was starting to get a little bleary-eyed, like me. It was starting to look like photos were starting to look the way that the world looks to me when I get up in the morning.
A little foggy.
Yeah, a little foggy.
Okay.
You need to have a clearer lens.
Yes, that's true.
We haven't had alcohol in a week.
Oh, yeah. We took a break from alcohol.
Just randomly.
Yeah, just
for no religious reason.
No religious reasons. I guess for me it was kind of health reasons. I was just feeling really heavy and like... I didn't want to do alcohol all the time. I don't know. I still have some like guilt structures built in. Like if I'm doing alcohol every evening, I might have a problem, And so like I figured also it's a ton of extra calories. So I figured
Right.
I could only do myself a favor by not taking all those calories in for a week. So that was a thing that I did.
How do you feel?
Like every day that goes by, I want to go to a bar more and more. Does that make me an addict?
Maybe.
I miss socializing.
It's really the social.
Well, and also,
you also
for me,
like
the
whiskey.
taste. I
Yeah.
really like the burn. I
know.
really like
I know.
nice, sharp drinks.
Yep.
I like the kick in the throat. I like the burn in the nose. Like, I like all that stuff.
I figured out how to take fizzy water and kombucha or cranberry juice and give myself...
Get just as excited about it.
No, nowhere near as excited.
Oh, but you did say recently that you were kind of like, I don't even really think I don't even want beer as much as I do.
Well, it's weird. After not drinking for a week, I thought it would be the same thing. Like, whoa, at the end of the week, let's go. And I was like, I think right now, this would be the time where on the way home, I would swing over and get a 6-pack and then just randomly start drinking 2 or 3 beers that evening.
Because summertime, I guess. Because you don't like water as much.
Yeah, because I don't like water.
Thing is, like, I don't know how to start drinking again and not just start enjoying it all the time.
I was driving home and I'm like, this is where I would buy the beer, but I'm like, I don't actually don't even really want beer right now. So that was a nice thing, I guess.
Interesting. Well, yeah.
Because I really, if I had a beer, I know it's going to make me feel after a long day. It's going to make me feel a little tired.
Yeah.
I was like, I already feel pretty rested. I don't know if I need to feel more tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel better. I do like the idea of a little pauhana, a little whiskey after work.
Me too. Gosh, work.
I think part of the stopping was one because we've talked about it, doing that. We've said, well, maybe
we've done it a couple times before.
We should just stop drinking for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't remember doing it before.
Like last summer, after we had a gin and tonics, a rip-roaring gin and tonics phase, right when the pandemic started.
Yeah, because we had to get the quinine from the tonic.
We only learned about that a couple weeks in. we
were already drinking
when
gin
there was
and
when there was a tonic shortage. We were like, why the heck isn't there any tonic? And then we found out that like tonic was invented to try to cure malaria because of quinine. It was really funny. So I think a bunch of people were justifying their gin and tonics by like they were going to protect themselves from the pandemic. But there were weeks
where we couldn't get tonic, so no more gin and tonics.
Well, yeah, we had to go down to the local liquor store and get the little 6-pack of it's $1.25 per bottle,
tiny little bottle
of tonic.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, we were drinking a lot of gin and tonics. There were several gin bottles on the back porch, and
I don't think we were alone at the beginning of the pandemic. Whenever
I didn't expect it to go on that long. I was like, but then I started realizing I was kind of thinking it's probably about that time of day to start relaxing, and it was getting earlier and earlier, like 3:00. I'd be like, I could probably start relaxing right now.
Yeah, because the sun was setting at 3:00 in the winter.
No, it was May.
Oh, I don't know what to tell you there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, how do you feel about taking a break from alcohol this time?
Yeah, I think for me, I would like to see. What happened?
You were talking too far from the microphone, so I turned your headphones down so you'd be drawn in closer.
Oh, turn in the headphones back up.
Only if you stay close to your microphone.
I'll stay close. Okay. More up. More. Okay, that's good. That way I don't yell. Just do a mellow tone.
Yeah.
Tell you a mellow story.
I'm really excited, guys. Something else new that happened. We have a friend of the show advising us. Thank you, Dan. And I got, ooh la la, mirror. I'm so excited about these. They make a nice whoosh. You can't hear it on the microphone, but they make a nice peeling noise when you take them apart. I have a whole box full of these. I'm going to stick them on the wall.
Yeah, we'll have to do a thing. No, I think for me,
that's going to help.
The drinking is about the social, because in Butte there's not a place. There's not a lot of places to go out, see a friends group randomly at one.
There's no roller rink.
It's the watering hole aspect. It's where people are like, okay, we're done with the day and we're going to socialize or talk story or have a little casual,
no general store,
casual work meeting or
no general
whatever.
store where people show up with their instruments at the end of the day.
That's really what when I go to the pub, that's what it's for.
We want to go hold court and see our friends, stake out a table,
people, say stuff,
see who walks by, have conversations,
hear the local stories,
catch up with our friends.
find out what rumors are going on.
Yeah.
Network, meet new people, learn stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing. And then whiskey goes along fine with that. I don't actually like getting drunk.
I don't need to get drunk. I would be happy with like one drink an hour, which is why I get tall drinks and a glass of water also. But sometimes people buy us drinks, which is really sweet.
I like it. But if it's one of those busy nights where you're talking to a lot of people, it's like the more you talk, the more you drink. And then people are like, you want another drink? I'm like, well, we're still here. I guess so. And then the next day, I pay a little bit the next day for that. And
it's hard to kind of open the eyeballs in the morning.
So I just have to be a more conscious drinker, I guess. If I'm going to go to the bar and drink, I have to like give myself
say no, thank you.
A limit.
I'll skip this round.
And a time frame. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
I like bars where when somebody buys you, I think this is really healthy, and apparently this isn't something they do outside of Butte. I wouldn't know because I never went to bars before I got to Butte 3 years ago.
No, you got broken good.
I got broken in a good town, I guess. But this is something that they do where if somebody buys the bar around, whether it's for celebration or because they're really drunk or because they're trying to smooth over an argument or whatever it is, all the bars in Butte have a different system. Sometimes it's a little cup upside down, or a little coin, or even a card, and they'll just give you like, look, when you feel like having another drink,
like next time you're here,
you can have another drink. But they're not just pouring around and putting it in front of everybody.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is really nice because then maybe you don't feel like having another round right now, but you will get one later.
Yeah, I'm not complaining because people are buying us drinks. I gotta figure out how to moderate it a little bit.
Right. Well, and one thing that I have noticed about myself is I don't feel like going out late in the evening unless I'm going to be drinking.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm using getting a little tipsy to stave off my sleepiness. I really like getting like 8-9 hours of sleep, 10. Just be honest. Like I would be happy with 10 hours of sleep I would love that. Really like 9.5 is honestly the happiest. Like I will wake up naturally after 9 hours, but I won't wake up naturally beforehand. And you know,
True.
like we've had a few invitations this week while we weren't drinking to go out and meet somebody and have a chat. Like specifically someone inviting us out to go and talk.
We had kombucha.
And I'm kind of like, I really don't feel, I'm tired. I just immediately start thinking of like, well, if I get in a car with Dark and then drive up there and then we start talking and then Dark's having a better time than I'm having because I'm not getting drunk. So I'm actually just getting sleepier and sleepier because it's getting closer and closer to bedtime. And then I'll realize that I'm trapped there because I don't have my own car. And so I'll get even more agitated and sleepy by knowing that I don't have the choice to leave if I want to. And I'll get sleepier faster. So it's like a whole problem, which is why I didn't go with you last time.
That whole process just exhausted me.
This is my life. Hillbilly says, West Virginia, drunk at a Renaissance fair. Are you drunk at a Renaissance fair right now?
Right on.
That'd be cool.
Party on, I guess.
Or is that where you learned to drink? Because that would be pretty fun. So week 1 of season 2, and we had a lot of in-between content from when KBMF kicked us out end of August 2020 to when we finally got the studio all built up and we filmed a couple of movies and we did a bunch of jobs and things like that. And then we got everything set to go and did our first episode April 12th of 2021. So August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Oh my Lord, 9 months. So we gestated this podcast studio. We did a human gestation on this podcast studio and did a show on pipelines because we had heard from our correspondent in Hawaii, Evna Omni, about the Colonial Pipeline leak that happened, coincidentally, in August of 2020. The second largest product spill in U.S. history. A bunch of gasoline leaked from a crack in the old Colonial Pipeline for months and was discovered by a couple of teenagers on ATVs. Coincidentally, the news article let me know that the teenagers' parents had told them no, they couldn't go out, and they went out anyway. And I thought that was kind of funny. That's the only reason that we know about this is because these teenagers were like, no, Mom and Dad, we're going to go out ATV riding anyway. And they snuck out, and then they found the leak in the nature preserve, the Oler Nature Preserve nearby. And Northwestern Energy, the big scoop about that story that is that Northwestern Energy, the Colonial Pipeline Company has been keeping. They haven't been updating numbers.
I'm trying to look it up right now. I'm trying to look up the latest information on it.
They haven't updated the spread. The last we heard was in April of 2021.
You know what I got? I clicked on one thing and it took me to an update your Adobe Flash Player page.
Okay.
But it was like gas spill in North Carolina larger and deeper than previously. It was for some...
Yeah, we already knew that. They said that was the update in April, was that it's larger and deeper. More gas has spilled, and it's spread in a larger area down into the soil and water table and wider than was previously mapped. But the Colonial Pipeline, despite having multiple fines and citations slapped on it, has just elected to not update the North Carolina Department of the Environment, or whatever it's called, Department of Environmental something. They just haven't. They're just like, well, it's bigger and wider and more, but we'll update you whenever. So now there's been, for like the last 6 months, there's been a permanent installation, and the nature preserve has been shut down. There are a bunch of trucks and equipment and people in yellow vests patrolling the area and putting in these kinds of wells that supposedly can suck the gasoline out of the water table and save the nature preserve and all of the surrounding area, I hope. But the funny part is that right about when news started coming out about that leak, there was the hack,
the potential data leak.
So it's almost impossible to find information about the Colonial Pipeline gasoline leak.
Yeah, product leak. Free
product.
Ranging product.
Yeah, right. The displaced product zone.
Displaced product.
Yes, unfortunately. And there really isn't any national news about it. You won't find any national news coverage.
Yeah, I just looked again. There's hardly anything. There
was like a Fox News TV station, statewide Fox News TV station was as big as it got, was talking about the Colonial Pipeline leak.
Right. I just looked up their Wikipedia page. So the first thing that comes up now is a Wikipedia page for the Colonial Pipeline and their history. And then they have a leak history section. History of leaks of the Colonial Pipeline.
On their website?
On their web? Okay. No, on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
And then it talks about the leak, all the basic, says they leaked 1.2 million. No, they leaked more than that. They know they leaked more than that, but Wikipedia is still saying 1.2, which is still the second largest leak in the history of the country, right?
Right. They've just elected to not update us.
So
or the state of North Carolina, which has been citationing them for 6 months. Like 10 months at this point.
No new news.
Yeah, no new news. They're just gonna clean it up for a while.
I'm sure it's fine.
So that was week 1, day 1, and then we had an awesome interview with Robin White,
right?
A Lakota elder, water protector.
Yep.
Activist, educator, youth activist. He does a lot of things. Yep. He's a very impassioned person involved in a lot of projects and was a fantastic first guest for Post-Orthodoxy season 2. He was our guinea pig. He was our guinea pig.
First Zoom guest.
Yeah, we set it all up and had him on as our Zoom guest, which was actually really fun and turned out really well.
Yeah.
Do you have anything in particular to say about Robin's interview?
No, it was nice. We had some good feedback from the folks. I think we'll be recycling through our guests. I'm looking forward to having him back on because things are changing so much.
You know what? I keep thinking about the structure is like of our show. So we're building this website so that we can have a subscription base, which will help pay our bills doing these shows and put us on the road so that we can, when stuff pops up in other parts of the country, we can hire a dog sitter and take our mobile kit out there and go and report on it for you guys. And you can be like, I'm watching this with my own eyeballs and it's not chopped up into little bits and dispersed through a variety of corporately and pharmaceutically funded news sources to my little eyes. And so in order to justify a $5 a month subscription, I'm looking forward to having more content that's subscriber only content. So when we hit certain milestones, we're going to be having more shows a week besides these 2 free for consumption shows. And that's going to give us the screen time that we need to have return guests while we're still having on new guests.
Right.
Yeah. So week 2 of Post-Orthodoxy season 2. That's a really cool time lapse.
Yeah.
That's fun. I love time lapses. We talked about trauma in preparation for an interview around the amygdala hijack. Specifically, we were talking about it really kind of set the tone for season 2. We've become a lot more trauma informed. Both of us had to do...
Gave me a lot to think about.
We had to do some soul searching after our friends and loved ones kicked us out and scrubbed us from KBMF Record. Dark was the founding music director of the radio station, and for the nearly 100 people in that radio station and the more than hundreds of supporters who donate to that station to just go along with the story from the KBMF board that we were dangerous and should be kicked out, gave us pause. And we had to take a longer, harder look at the traumas surrounding recent political events and the pandemic, and the nexus of the pandemic trauma and political trauma, especially on the left, has created a space where people, especially on the left, really just can't hear you say anything other than the democratic safe words. And unfortunately, with KBMF being a democratically funded, supported, and staffed news source here in Butte, it just us discussing things outside of democratic fundamentalist norms made people feel unsafe. And we realized, especially doing this trauma research and talking with our guest on week 2, that we could have gone slower. That's when we sort of brought in the disclaimer. Like, we are not stressed out by new information. For some reason, Dark and I have been through so much shit already in our lives that we're not stressed out by new information or new situations.
Yeah, I feel like the 2016 election, there's different kinds of trauma, right? So the election of Trump was one kind of trauma. That's like an impact trauma, we call that.
Acute.
An acute
trauma. The moment where you
right.
realize he won and you start thinking half of your neighbors in this country are racist, homophobic, misogynistic assholes.
Right. So there was that acute trauma of somebody realizing that their neighbors had elected a game show host to be the president. That was the acute trauma. And then what's the long-term trauma of like them opening up their Twitter feed every day?
Chronic trauma.
Then the chronic trauma.
Which people were giving to themselves.
Yeah, it's true. Not being able to look away.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that, the sirens. It's not being able to look away.
Right.
And then sort of losing yourself in the entrancement of the thing. I feel like a lot of people suffered a lot of Trump trauma. And I know that gets used pejoratively to say that you're a
snowflake.
Wimp, right? But I witnessed it. I don't know what's the politically correct way to say that somebody's a head case. Is it that they have suffered some acute and chronic trauma?
Probably something to do with lockdown. Like they're in a traumatic response state.
Traumatic response state. So yes.
Can you drag your microphone further towards the camera? There you go. That works out well, I think. Yeah.
So. Yes, I feel like that's what happened in the KBMF story, is that a lot of people compounded traumas of Trump, and then the adrenaline shot of fear with the coronavirus thing, I think just hijacked a lot of people's brains. And I was shocked during that time that people could just blatantly go along with bad form. The bad form of just slandering us and kicking us out of the station for no good reason.
I was shocked, and
so many people just went,
Yeah, well, and then there's also like kind of this Stockholm syndrome thing, which is a major part of the evaluations that Dark and I do on Post-Orthodoxy all the time, talking about cults, family groups, closely knit groups, any kind of group that people create, especially if you grew up not feeling part of a group, and then you find one and join one, whether it's an arts group or a community that supports you or
health practice group,
right? Crunchy Mama, whatever
Game
it
night
is.
Group.
Anytime you join one of these groups, your loyalty, well, we call it loyalty on the outside, but I think on the inside, it's really needing to feel secure, which is a valid primal human need, prevents people from being able to accept that someone in this family, especially if it's not the family they were born with, could have betrayed them. That's something that we've heard a lot from people at the radio station when we were trying to explain to them what really happened last fall. Is they're like, well, Clark wouldn't lie to me. And it's really this mindset that if Dark and I got kicked out of a radio station he helped start, that he must have done something. Well, that I must have done something.
Looking at how those traumas...
Otherwise, I can't trust this family that is my family where my own family has rejected me.
Right. That's what I felt like was a good up close and personal experience of how the power of an organization trumps the power of the individual, right? So people will just automatically say, well, it's either those two people are right or the organization is right.
The entire organization.
So, but if they're right, then that means the entire, like the heads and the mind and the
people
hearts,
leading me
the people
and who are supposed
are
to be protecting me,
protecting the organization, were wrong. And what does that mean?
And then I would lose my home.
Right.
These are primal simplifications of primal fears.
So that would we should just make a documentary, I think, actually, because it's a nice art. It's such a like meta story that we're doing a show on cults and how cults work and how difficult it is to leave. But then from behind us, it was like how easy it is to get kicked out.
How easy it is for people to not be able to recognize when they're exhibiting or experiencing a cult-like situation.
Right. KBMF has, my new trope is that the social justice organization has now just become a social club.
Yes, unfortunately.
And people are just willing to go along even though it flies in the face and defies the mission of social justice and education and so on to not address this.
Right. Absolutely.
People are like, well, I guess the mission of the station's not that important, really. We're all having a good time.
We just said that to get our 501c3 status.
But if it happens there, I mean, it happens on the low level, and then you just play that out. Like, think about your state political party. Think about your, so many different kinds of social groups. All it takes is for, like, a couple of animals to upset the herd somehow, and the herd will kick you out.
Yeah, it's true. A friend of mine got squeezed out. Well, I can't even name any names. A friend of mine was on the board of an arts organization here in town and was trying to update it into the 21st century and help this aging arts organization move forward with some changes that would have been beneficial and brought it more into the public eye of the current demographics of this town, but most of the board members were over 70 and she was in her 40s and she gradually just got squeezed out. They didn't vote her out. They didn't kick her out. Her experience of being on that board just gradually became so horrible that she had to move on for her own mental health. And that's unfortunate. That's something that people do. So squeeze that animal out, just start ignoring it or treating it badly.
Right. So the whole KBMF story was like this interesting exercise in like
trauma,
building community, having community, then community calcifying into some caricature of itself.
Yeah.
And then getting kicked out. I didn't really see that coming, like I really didn't see it coming.
Well, because it came so fast. Like
there's no 3 strikes or anything. They're just all like dangerous.
There are 3 strikes in the KBMF radio station manual.
Right.
For DJs, you get 3 strikes. But unfortunately, in our case, we got no strikes. It was just, no, screw you.
Yeah, so it was interesting to watch all that play out.
And everybody justify it.
It was traumatic a little bit at the time to deal with all that stuff. But I dealt with my trauma around that. And then I had to start looking at, like, what was the dynamic? How did it get so bad?
Yeah.
How did a social justice organization start doing the opposite of social justice as a matter of course and habit? Like, how did that suddenly happen? Is it one person at the top? Is it everybody? I mean, it's easy to blame that person and say, well, they're just manipulating everyone. But then part of me is like, so does everybody else not have...
But that's basically saying everybody else is too dumb to not be manipulated.
Exactly.
Which isn't very flattering.
So it feels actually just, it was like a sad laziness, I feel like, on the part of people to say, well, wait a minute, that's not correct. and we should remain correct. But nobody ever said that.
Well, we don't have trauma-informed conversations in this country. We don't have emotional intelligence education in high school, which we should absolutely be having emotional intelligence education. Some schools are starting to implement self-soothing training for children in kindergarten and preschool, where like you learn to feel your feelings in your body when you're angry, or when you're mad at another kid. Like that, schools are starting to implement practices where the classroom stops and the teacher walks you through, like, where do you feel angry? What do you, is your heart racing? Are your cheeks red? Is your tummy fluttering? Now everybody will take a minute and do some breathing exercises, and so everybody does a little tiny kitty meditation, Evil Zaid is listening in from Turkey, and I asked him how everybody felt about Trump in Turkey, if there was like
Trump in Turkey,
like fans.
Right.
Some other countries, in Britain, there are a lot of fans of Trump.
Oh, yeah. Germany, too.
Yeah, and or like maybe people who were just as worried about what Trump could do on the global stage as U.S. citizens were worried about what he might do on the global stage. And Evil Zaid says, Turkish people don't care.
We're good.
And he said, Trump is a nationalist, Biden is a globalist, ? Thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's
perspective.
That's the story.
I think that's the story.
Trump didn't bomb as many people. Biden will.
Jumped right in there and started bombing. Yeah.
That's
also, I mean,
being a globalist.
Globally taking global things.
Liberating resources.
Liberating global resources.
Yeah.
In the name of democracy. And so then our guest,
Freedom.
Week 2 was Joseph Myers,
yes,
who has written a few different books on communication and cults. Well, not cults, but like healthy community, how to have a healthy community, vibrant, healthy community. And he's working on a book right now around trust issues. So we were able to have him on, and he very calmly and kindly spoke to us around trauma and the amygdala hijack, which is when you can't...
It's my new catchphrase for like 3 months.
The amygdala hijack?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You just want to spread it around everywhere.
Oh, you just totally got hijacked.
Have you heard
I just
the
got
hijack?
hijacked. I just saw myself get hijacked because somebody said a thing and I was like, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa,
Right.
my amygdala got hijacked and I went into some default.
I started instinctively responding, even though I have the ability to choose how I want to respond to you. I started instinctively responding because of a previous event where I was scared or enraged or something like that.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I think that's been like the tool that I keep at the top of the toolbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been much more trauma informed in season 2, I think, which I really appreciate because that's why we started our disclaimer. Is like Dark and I love talking about difficult things.
We didn't do a disclaimer this week.
Sometimes people are terrified of the thought of jumping out of an airplane or off a cliff with a bungee, and sometimes people love that thing. And people are different, and that's okay. And somebody that doesn't like jumping out of an airplane with a parachute is not less than somebody that loves jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. If you are not the sort of person that likes jumping out of intellectual airplanes, Post-Orthodoxy may not be the show for you.
Yeah, if we want to start like
nothing is sacred,
questioning God,
or everything is sacred.
There are some people, that feeling like if we start deconstructing. It's like if you're raised where there's just the capital G God, that's it, right? Mm-hmm. And then everybody else is just wrong for some reason. And then you start figuring out that there are other gods,
right,
and other stories and other cultures that have, right? So when you get to that point, there's the double down, right? Where you're like, nope, just my God and all the other wrong ones. Or you start saying, okay, maybe God in America and God in India are cultural representations of something that isn't necessarily those things. So you start deconstructing God. There are people who will stand further away from you to keep from getting struck by lightning.
Yeah, I sort of do that still sometimes.
And talking culturally, sexually, economically, like all those things, it can cause people to go like, whoa, okay. Whoa. Obviously, I no longer have any respect for you, or you're dangerous, or you're an idiot.
Yes, this
for
show,
even thinking of that thing, right?
This is the show where the hypothetical atheist was born, which I think is
right.
Anytime somebody brings up you might be having a great conversation about global politics where you're all kind of agreeing about what's going on globally.
Right.
And then somebody says something about 9/11 that doesn't match what you think happened on 9/11. And suddenly you just decide you don't know this person. You don't have anything in common. You don't trust them. And everything that they just talked about for the last hour is probably sus.
Yeah.
That's an amygdala hijack.
Right.
And that's the hypothetical atheist. So Joseph, we had this great conversation about
psychology,
trauma, mental health, psychology. And then late in the conversation, he was like, now full disclosure, I'm a rather conservative Trump voting Christian.
Right.
And we were like, we could just hear the record scratches in all our listeners' brains.
Yeah. The hypothetical atheist then went, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to anything else this person says, even though I really enjoyed what he was saying just a minute ago.
And I agreed with it.
And
right. I think that's a large part of the trauma that the left has experienced over the last 6 years is that if a person where we used to be able to socialize and disagree with each other, and not feel unsafe, nowadays if a person if what they're talking about doesn't match what you think is going on or what you think is safe and correct at all, like everything has to match. If they only don't match a particular piece of information about what you think is correct and right, you suddenly just should probably not talk to them. They're on the other team.
Yeah,
this teamism that's soaked in everywhere.
Oh, there's a rabbit hole I want to go down. There's an interview. Reiner Fulmick was interviewing some cat from England who's banned media. Who then he got banned from BBC or some other thing. So then he started his own, we're going to dig into this stuff. And he was talking about this plan that is in, I guess there are documents within the British government as well as the German government, but there's this plan to use neurolinguistic programming to alter it's called, whatever, crowd control, whatever. No, it's social engineering.
Social engineering.
So
it's
nations
a real thing.
have social engineering plans.
Yeah.
Right?
Stuff that they do to us that we're not aware that they're doing to us.
So we become socially engineered in these waves, like things like politics and the whole pandemic narrative definitely push people into of a kind camps. It stopped the mix-up of all the variety in a human society, the variety in a church, the variety in your social group. Suddenly was much less variant.
Yeah.
And it became a lot of
you had to be of a kind or else.
Preaching to the choir kind of business going on. Mm-hmm. And this guy was talking, and I don't have any references for this. This is something I will dig into. Mm-hmm. I will find some information. I want to talk about it because I think it's interesting. So the idea of the social engineering is a part of the engineering plan is that you have the people police each other.
Yeah.
You don't have...
why waste our time and valuable resources?
Right. So you basically have the population polarize itself and police each other's behavior. And we saw that it didn't start with the just wear a mask or you're trying to take my freedom because of this mask. It didn't start with that. That was sort of the flowering of something that has been growing in our social engineering for a long time.
Yeah.
And the flowering was us saying, it's either me or you, you're with us or against us. The Democrats used to make fun of that on the Republicans whenever George Bush said that, but they're doing the exact same thing that the Republicans in the late 90s, early 2000s were doing. They're doing the exact same thing, which is it's us versus them. We are now, you cannot be a good Democrat if you do not hate
Republicans.
And
especially Republicans.
If you don't hate them enough, are you really a Democrat?
If you don't vocally have disdain
right.
and distrust of anything Republicans say, and in fact Republicans themselves, then are you actually a Democrat, and do you actually care about the rainbow community or oppressed minorities or women?
Right. So that's something I want to look more into, because it's not just like a general idea or a conspiracy theory. It's a part of the social engineering plan of, I believe it's England. But that got thrown into action with the pandemic narrative. In Germany, there's the panic paper in Germany. There's another similar paper that they have in England that was drafted by their government that basically said, to get people to comply.
This is a specific, intentional, and known governmental plan.
plan to make people afraid, to say we have to scare them into compliance.
Because this pandemic is such a big deal.
Because the pandemic is such a big deal, we have to, for their own good, we must scare them. That's a part of the plan to get people to comply.
So that they will follow the rules that we think will save us. We have to make people more scared than they would naturally be.
So I don't know if that same plan was rolled out here because we had Trump, which is its own very particular shit show.
Right.
And I'm not sure how all that works with the other side being like the I'm not wearing a mask because I think this was started in Wuhan, or it's not really a virus, or whatever that whole narrative is.
Which is a broad spectrum of things. Just because somebody questions mask policies does not mean that they think SARS-CoV-2 doesn't exist.
These are all the people who are like, now wait a minute now. So this act of the left meme shaming everybody that didn't go lockstep with whatever the CDC said or the Surgeon General said. When people said, now wait a minute, they were automatically suspect or unfriended, just canceled.
Mm-hmm. Which made an even tighter bubble of awareness for people on the left who were doing all the canceling, because that's
right.
Just FYI, that's not something that the right does.
So I ironically, doing that is sort of paving the way for a stronger fascist state, because you don't have a unified population. We are very divided.
Well, also, Hillbilly's like, I don't see anybody complying. The U.S. is massive, and it's full of a variety of different regional identities. England is tiny. England is tiny compared to the U.S.
Right.
And it's all kind of, they've got their regional identities, but we've got the Bayou and the Oregon coast and Arizona.
Yeah.
And Maine.
Montana's its own little world.
These are all these are all whole different regional identities. Yes, we have a national news system, but not everybody's watching the same thing, and hardly,
Right.
I think it would be a lot harder to scare a country of this size into total compliance.
So there won't be total compliance, and that's why I think the divide is engineered in order to have, rather than the police having to police people's masks, they just had the neighbors demonizing each other over it.
Yeah. Well, they had
and then
the
you can't
blue
be
neighbors.
mad,
They had
right.
the blue neighbors demonizing the red neighbors over it.
And the red neighbors demonizing the people for being like...
No, they weren't demonizing them. They were laughing at them. There's a big difference. I think it's really important, and it's unfortunate, and it's sad, and I hope it's not a trend that stays.
There was laughing at them, but there was also this other, there's this other strain, which is the blues are evil for being a part of whatever the story is. This is like just an attempt to the Great Reset.
Like QAnon.
I'm not making fun of it. Like QAnon.
I see.
That
Right.
whole thing.
QAnon is the
which is like that is
rose
evil.
up to try to stop
Right.
child trafficking in upper level politics, but QAnoners largely believe that the child trafficking is only in the blue upper level politics, not the red upper level politics. So if anybody's loyal to Hillary Clinton, then they're basically a child molester. They're basically a child molester. So yes, you're right. There were some extreme groups on the red side.
And I have many people who are politically left that did not turn into trauma victims during the pandemic. There were plenty of people who did not.
Who did not get on Facebook every day and
many
deride.
People who did.
Yeah.
Many people who I just watched. This to me is like the zombie apocalypse. This is the zombie apocalypse. It wasn't an actual virus. It was what was unleashed socially between us in terms of if there was ever a divide before that you doubted. I don't see how you could doubt it now.
Hillbilly on YouTube, to go back a tick, says he is an atheist and he got ordained.
What? Ordained atheist?
So that he could do gay marriages for people. And
okay, yeah.
Then they don't charge for their services.
Right on.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I would love to be ordained. Although in Montana, anybody can marry anybody, so I don't have to be ordained in Montana.
Well, you can be. That's why I like the Church of the Subgenius. You get to pick your own title.
Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Pay him $20, and you are now.
Right.
Or what I did, which was didn't pay him, just because that's actually in the spirit of the Subgenius. It would be to buck that system too. So I wrote the letter, and then I didn't send them a check and just said I would like to be.
Oh, you didn't pay them to be ordained. You were like, no, I'm even more subgenius than you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I said I am now going to be a subgenius, and I'm going to pick whatever title I want.
Subgenius.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were ordained, darling.
By my own authority.
What ordination title did you pick?
I can't tell you right now.
Oh my God. Okay, so week 3 of Post-Orthodoxy, season 2, we were preparing to interview our friend who lives in Hawaii and has 3 philosophy degrees,
yes.
Evno Omni. He has graciously given us an interview slot on his radio show on KTUH, which is a college radio station in Honolulu that has been around as long as Dark has been around.
Long time.
And so we have a segment. We join Evno for a segment of his show on KTUH every Sunday in Honolulu by phone. And so we were finally able, with Post-Orthodoxy Season 2 set up, to return the favor. And in preparation for talking with Evno, he was on a kick about the environment at the time and how we can get people involved in saving the planet. And so we kind of just wafted around. I don't even really know how much we talked about the environment.
Not very much.
But, like... We
talked about philosophy.
We talked about the philosophy of environmentalism, like...
a little bit.
Yeah, in our Monday show that week. And we pushed our show early. We had been originally doing them at 7, but we pushed it early to 5:30 because that was the first DJ social at KBMF.
Oh, yeah.
The first return DJ social. And a fellow DJ who... Lawrence... The Midnight Cafe.
Right.
I wouldn't mention his name except that he specifically wanted me to mention his name.
He said,
was
please
like,
do.
You tell him I was the one that told you. He told us when the DJ social was going to be because we've been cut out of those email lists. And so we went to the DJ social. I would say probably a bit belligerently, knowing that we were not wanted there by the 2 people in charge who are in charge of kicking us out.
Well, we were paying members of the organization, and we had a right to be there.
As members and as a statement, and because we wanted to see our friends who we hadn't been able to see in like over a year of DJ socials being canceled, and really kind of not thinking that they would kick us out. Like,
I figured maybe there would be an opportunity to ask a question of when they were going to respond, because they kept saying, well, this issue is over. I'm like, it's...
You don't, yeah.
You're the offending party.
Us.
You don't get to say it's over.
Yeah, and so we had our show early that Monday and went to the DJ social, and Clark Grant
or Suzanne Stefanik or somebody within the inner sanctum.
Well, Clark kicked us out of the building. He came up to us as soon as we got into the building and told us to leave, and we said no. And then he asked us, please leave. He just kept talking over us, and we were like, look, we need to talk.
That's the station manager of the radio
station. Yeah, the station manager. So and finally he said, if you don't leave, I'll call the police. And we're like, well, go ahead. Like, we're still not... Like, we're here to see our friends. We're paying members of the organization. Dark helped start the thing. We need to talk. The DJs don't know what's going on. The donors don't know what's going on. And the board is running roughshod over the radio station.
They've gone rogue.
Yeah. And so he finally said, look, if you leave, I'll call you. And we can talk about it.
I asked him to, like, we'll leave, but just tell me you'll call me because we used to be friends and we should find a way to be able to get through this and work about this.
Mm-hmm. And he said, I give you my word. If you leave, I'll call.
Right.
And he hasn't called.
Yeah,
so
he didn't call.
Yeah, that was April 26th. But yeah, and so then he called the cops on us anyway.
Right.
While we were sitting outside.
So we were doing, what is that? Speaking truth to power? That's
we
social
kind of did
justice.
It was an accidental sit-in.
Yeah, it was an accidental sit-in.
We didn't go there to do a sit-in. We went there to talk to our friends and try and clear some of the rumors up that had been spread about us.
And then it became a sit-in.
And it became a sit-in when Clark said that he was going to call the police on us.
To kick us off the public sidewalk.
Yeah, and then he did, and it was embarrassing for him.
Yes.
and the board president.
Yeah.
So then we had Evno Omni on. 3 philosophy degrees. When I picked this photo of him out of his Facebook profile pictures, and he felt like he looked like a baby in this photo.
Well, he's had 2 kids since.
Yeah, that'll do a number on you. And then how did you feel about that conversation with Evno?
Yeah, it was good. I always enjoy ranging around. I've known Evno for many, many, many years, and so I sort of know kind of always the point on the horizon that the conversations are working towards.
Yeah.
Which is, how do we get everybody to stop being cunts? But he won't say it that way. He would say, like, how do we help everybody
motivate
respect the earth.
How do we
or
motivate people to get involved,
to change their minds?
Or how do you help people find a vision? And I'm like, well,
how
I
do
mean,
we
for
help
me,
people
like,
find a vision?
You have to want one first.
That's
like some
kind of the
people are just living.
So I always enjoy those conversations
Yeah.
because that is,
And
I
it
think,
puts
a strong,
it in my world to chew
it's a
on.
strong id for me to also wonder that. Like, I do kind of feel like, yeah, how can we be having a better
How
time
can we
with
get
each
people
other?
more involved?
How can we have less division amongst us?
Right.
Like, because it feels like a lot of the divide is engineered. It's socially engineered. It helps with management of people as long as we're in tidy little groups that don't like each other. So, yeah, I feel like I think about how could we be having a better time? How could we be less divisive with each other? But then I think what I'm coming to more and more, and I think this is what we always end up having somewhere in the conversation with Evno.
Yeah.
The statement is that I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's the way to go, to try to change people's minds. I think, or at least not logically. And I've started to understand that like most big shifts happen emotionally.
Yeah.
And
we
that,
really
and that the work
we need
is
more sensational video titles if we're gonna have actual change happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. With exclamation points.
Yeah. OMG, she said what? Trigger words. We literally need to frame our videos with trigger words to get people involved.
I think there's the idea that people will change and then the world will be better. And I feel like that's part of the prescribed mind fuck that's going on. Is that most people are actually decent regular folk that are just wanting to have a good time also, except for all the other jerks. And I think that's what most people are doing. I'm fine. I like most people. I'm not a bad person, but all these other people are idiots, and so there's nothing we can do. That's
so
like
to
this
me,
thing.
what this ongoing conversation we've been having with Evno about like how do we get people to be better or to have a better time.
Take care of the earth more.
Like, no, I feel like I need to be focusing on making sure I'm having a better time because I am also a person.
Right.
In society. I make up society. I make up society. You make up society.
Are you having a good time in the world, or are you a big fat drag?
Am I having a good time, or am I suffering? And if I'm suffering, then I need to work on my own suffering first. And we are not taught to do that.
No.
The Judeo-Christian narrative is still hugely in play. That you just suck it up and take care of people, and that's what makes you a good person. And it's like, no, if I'm suffering, I am bleeding my suffering into my community and causing suffering.
Yeah. How can I have a good time if all these people are having a bad time? It feels bad to have a good time when they're having a bad time. I'm like, well, if they were having a better time, I could have a better time. So why can't we just reverse that? Why can't we figure out how to take care of our neuroses, how to be a better expression of a human being?
Yeah.
A more true, healthy expression of an individual human being who wants to get along with other folks. I mean, I think we're herd animals. We kind of want to get along with other folks. We like to have the crowd. We like to be recognized as a part of the community.
Yeah.
We want that.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that for some reason.
Yeah.
Or we're doing it in these small little easily fracturable pods. So, yeah, I'm thinking, no, I think we have to actually it has to go back to the self.
I have to start feeling
better. The doctor has to
better.
heal themselves before they can start healing other people.
And then I think my focus isn't so much as trying to maybe a slight twist on what Evno's journey is right now is that for me is like, I need to make sure I'm having a good time for the sake of my loved ones and the community around me. And then try to find ways to enable and support the people around me to be having a better time. Whatever that means. Maybe
let's define that a little bit.
Some trauma
more.
Awareness.
I would say like being present is another way to say that.
Yeah.
Like if I'm present, if I'm not like future tripping about what might happen in a situation or being a drag because I'm stuck in something that already happened that I'm really depressed about and I don't know how to fix, blah, 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 then I'm not present. That's what I'm bringing to the moment with somebody else. So like having a better time, I think, is facilitated by being more present. So being able to drop into the moment and have a story come out of the moment versus it being a continuation with all the shit that you brought with you or all the shit that you're pushing ahead. That's what I think of when I say having a better time, which is just being able to be more present with people and discover each other.
And for me, rather
kind of bitching,
rather than trying to encourage the people around me, I really just can't. Like Hillbilly said, you can't force anything on anyone.
No.
I can't affect those people out there, but I can
That's
affect.
an abstract concept anyway.
I can't affect the lady that checks me out at the grocery store every week. I can affect Kim. I love Kim.
Yeah, you
and
stop
I can
people wait in line and you have a conversation with her and everybody's like, that's
nice.
A social thing.
That's
to happen.
people being real with each other, and it affects everybody around us. I can have that effect, and I can have all I can have an effect on is whether or not somebody is having a good moment or a bad moment. That's all I actually have power over.
Right.
Am I putting a good thing into their environment, or am I putting a negative thing into their environment?
Yeah, because there's some people who like to go just be snooty at the waitress or the person because they're a server in a role where they have to say yes or no, sir. And so a lot of people go into a scene,
which is them paying their trauma forward.
To dump their shit on somebody.
They don't have control in a certain aspect of their life that they need control in, so they're dumping that onto somebody else who doesn't have the choice to walk away from them.
And so you're talking about doing the opposite of that, is like being able to be present enough to...
and open.
Talk to somebody, and actually, this is one of the things that I tell people all the time, is like, why did you move to Butte? What do you like about Butte? And I was like, because people ask you how you're doing, and they wait for the answer. They don't wait for the answer in L.A., or New York.
Right.
They don't ask how you're doing and then want to know.
Hillbilly just said something really interesting. Geographic isolation breeds culture.
Yes. Yeah.
Culture breeds happiness and conformity.
Right. And some people get pushed out of that happiness in order for the happiness to not be disturbed. I mean, that's culture. That's
an interesting concept. So then later that week, we got letters from the Butte America Foundation board and the Carpenters Union Hall board.
Yeah.
Both telling us that we were banned from the radio station, banned from the Carpenters Union Hall.
Right.
So people with the Butte America Foundation board, which runs the local radio station KBMF that Dark helped start, that we got kicked out of in September, for not being political enough, people in that board manipulated and lied to people in the Carpenters Union Hall board and lied to them because this board believes that we are ongoingly harassing KBMF, which means they've been lied to.
Yeah, that's a lie.
Unfortunately. And so...
Trying to hold an organization accountable for corruption
is not harassment.
Is not harassment.
I mean, technically, dictionary definition of harassment is any unwanted behavior.
Yeah.
So
trying to hold them accountable.
Harassing you for your own good, I guess. So the next week has a nice follow-up to the trauma, and we got to go a little bit faster. We're having a great time, just blah, blah, blah. But next, the fourth week, we talked about communication. We were specifically talking about nonviolent communication and active listening because we were going to be interviewing Chad Okrish on Thursday as our Thursday guest, and he teaches active listening as a college course, which is really exciting. He's also like a really great musician.
I was not a very good active listener during that program.
Yeah.
It's hard to be like an active listener and a host where you're worried about the gaps in time and stuff.
The gaps in time? I'm actively listening to you right now.
Yeah, that gap I helped create by not saying anything.
You're being annoying.
Just to demonstrate the awkwardness of that.
Yeah, but that never happened. It's more like when Chad's saying something and you're so excited about what he's saying that you're getting ready to think about the thing that you're going to say when he's done talking, and so you're not really responding to what he's saying. You're just thinking about the thing that came up in your mind.
Exactly. Even though we were talking about that very exact thing.
Even though. And we also talked a lot about cognitive privilege and emotional intelligence.
Hashtag, we should, did we trademark that? I haven't even put that in yet. But
cognitive privilege?
Yeah, cognitive privilege. I think that's ours.
You think you invented that?
Yeah, I think we did that one.
Well, we definitely invented trauma superpowers. But that's another week. So cognitive privilege
is. Yeah, I think we coined that one.
It's just can we just stop bitch slapping people who haven't had the same experiences or teaching that we've had?
Right.
Like, if you have been so lucky as to have had training and exposure and education and travel and emotional intelligence awareness and supportive blah, 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 or like, just be nice to the people that don't know the shit that don't think the same as you. Like, I'm sorry, I know the Cultural Revolution was in the 70s and like women got the vote in the 20s and blah, blah, blah. But like, there are still, it's a big country. There are still people who have never seen a black person.
It's true.
There are lots of people in this country who have never seen a black person.
Except for on TV.
Right, as a stereotype, probably.
Yeah, right.
There are still people in this country who have never been around a member of the Rainbow Plus community. They've never...
It's just a hypothetical story out there.
The gays.
Yeah, gays.
The gays. Or the gay agenda. So they only experience a stereotype. They only have ever had a bad education about LGBTQ plus community members. And if you have had the fortune of exposure and education and community with LGBTQ plus members' thoughts and concepts, can we just like acknowledge our cognitive privilege and be kind educators? Or kindly say, I don't have it in me right now to be the person that teaches you about this thing. It's too close and personal for me to be the person that explains to you why everybody should be able to get married. So can we please change the subject?
Right.
Like, let's be those people. If you have cognitive privilege, stop slapping people in the face with it.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, that one was really rough. And then we talked with Chad. That was awesome.
Yep.
Chad was great. The next week, sacred cows, which is a word you're not supposed to say. He's like, she's done it again. Damn it. And this was one of our shows on the road. We just kind of talked about this and a follow-up show of hyperpartisanship, which I didn't make a little meme for. But Sacred Cows and hyperpartisanship were both shows talking about like the stuff that you're just not supposed to we just aren't supposed to talk about vaccines anymore. We're not supposed to question it. We're not supposed to talk about it.
It's too uncomfortable.
You're not supposed to talk about 9/11. You're not supposed to talk about Israel. You're not supposed to talk about,
Is it that you're not supposed to talk about it? Or like, I would say...
You're not supposed to question a certain narrative.
Right. You're with us or against us again. Mm-hmm. That's one of those really disturbing things where, there's that whole idea of all it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So there's that idea. So the realms that we interact with and communicate with online, for a lot of people, it's online. In those realms, the availability bias gets to a point where you don't question things if enough of your friends are of that idea.
And then if somebody...
There's no need to question it because you trust them and your friends.
You trust your friends. You trust
right.
the people you get your information from.
Right. So...
They haven't led you astray before.
Right. So if you come in and say, wait a minute, that trope that everybody's going down the road on maybe isn't rooted in actuality or reality.
Right.
And maybe there's other things to talk about. But to even introduce the idea that maybe there's another perspective of something that everybody agrees on in their friends group, that makes you challenging.
And this is an example that we bring up repeatedly on Post-Orthodoxy because it just kind of gives you an idea of the college-educated, middle-class white people on Facebook who were shocked that Elizabeth Warren didn't get any votes.
She's the best person for the job. How come she didn't get any delegates?
Like shook. Because
we thought on that day she was going to be there.
Everybody they were talking to and their entire experience, their news feed, their news sources, all of the people they were talking. Obviously, she's the best choice. She's basically saying what Bernie's saying, and she's a woman.
Come on now.
So wins all around.
Yeah.
And they were shook because they'd been canceling.
How did that happen?
They'd been canceling people for 4 or 5 fucking years.
Got tired of
that didn't agree with them.
Right. Got tired of the annoying Bernie people.
Completely lost touch with anybody that thought differently than they did, and largely are not aware of things such as that more people in the U.S. have dropped out of high school than have graduated college. So Elizabeth Warren's policies were not as enticing to the main demographic in the U.S., which is impoverished working class.
Yep.
Month to month, week to week, day to day, working class people who don't get to go to the dentist when they need to go to the dentist.
And they just drug out the guy that was closest to the last person they weren't that concerned about, which was Barack Obama. Like he was the nice guy with Barack. I guess we go that way now.
Yeah. Oh, Biden. You're talking about Biden. I see. Yeah. Yeesh. Woo. And then we're already up in June. This is great.
Yeah.
Okay, we're chugging right along. So June, Pride Month, International Pride Month. And we just kind of dove into Dark and my individual experiences of the gay.
Being raised in right-wing cults.
Both being raised super conservative kinds of Christian groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we were taught and what our experiences were. I kind of feel like the gay people, the gay friends.
Yeah.
Males who like males.
Yeah.
Not just gay as an easy way to say all Rainbow Plus community members, but like my gay friends in college were the ones that helped me realize that the world I was raised in was a very small part of reality, and that there was a lot more going on beyond the kind of Christianity that I grew up in than I'd been told. And they were very kind and very real, loving people who were willing to have conversations with me about my experience of worrying about all my gay friends going to hell and trying to get them to decide to not be gay so that they wouldn't go to hell. And they didn't bitch slap me in the face with how I just needed to be open and accepting. And they used up some of their energy to take time to talk to me and to hear my side of the story and to bring their side of their reality, to bring their reality. It's not just that they want to be gay or they chose to be gay. Like, their reality is that they are gay, and they brought that reality in front of my eyes and into my heart and psyche in a real way that I was able to actually connect with, rather than just this concept of gay people.
For me, it was moving to Los Angeles and not knowing anything about any of that, except that, you know, I was already out of the cult at that point, but the cult perspective was probably...
You can take the boy out of the cult, but you can't take the cult out of the boy.
You should probably kill them because they're gay.
Oh.
Because that's, I mean, I was raised in a white supremacist cult.
Right, your cult was a little worse.
Way more extreme. It was sort of, they didn't say that so much, but really...
Right.
They're a danger to the community.
The children.
To the children. That was the perspective. So, like, I didn't believe that anymore, but I also had zero exposure that I knew until I moved to Los Angeles. And then
you grew up in 3 states and went to public school.
Yeah.
And had no exposure to gay.
No exposure. Well, it's another story. Anyway, so then suddenly I was what they call chicken in Los Angeles. I was descended upon by predatory older gay men who wanted to make a meal of me.
Ooh.
And so I have to say it's nice that people find you attractive.
Yeah.
And after I got over this sort of initial apprehension because I'd had no exposure, then I was like, why wouldn't they want to bang me?
Things we can't say on KBMF. Thanks for kicking us out, Suzanne.
And then I got over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you gave it the old college try.
I thought maybe.
Well, not quite the old college try.
That's always,
mentally, he gave it the old college try.
As chicken, that's what the buzzards would try to use on you. Is like, well, you know what, you're gay and you just don't know it yet. I can tell you're gay and you're just deeply, deeply closeted about it. And so I'm like,
maybe I am.
Sure. Yeah. After you hear that enough times, I'm like, wait, maybe I am deeply closeted.
Yeah.
And I'm gay, and I'm so deeply closeted that all my thoughts are of boobies. I'm just really. So I thought, yeah, maybe, you know.
So you tried to think really hard.
I tried to be gay for about 48 hours, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I thought of like if I have to bang a guy, who would it be?
Which guy friend?
And, which guy friend would it be? Somebody I know.
Yeah.
And then it just really not gay. I don't care if you're gay, but I'm not gay. And I'm not deeply closeted.
And that's okay.
That's totally fine.
We had a friend of ours recently. This is another great example of this divide of the bitch slapping, the cognitive privilege bitch slapping that's going on. Of like, oh, you don't you don't want to see guys kissing, you must be homophobic. So a friend of ours was kind of like, his son came out and in struggling to be a supportive Christian father to his gay son, he's wrestling with his own thoughts about this sort of thing. He's like, I just really, he confided in us, I just really don't want to see two guys kissing. I don't want to see two guys making out. I don't want to see it, and I know he's talking about like, I don't want to see it in my Disney movies. I don't want to see it on my football teams. I don't want to see it
on your commercials,
in my commercials for health insurance.
Yeah.
And I understand his discomfort because he hasn't seen it before in his entire 50-something-year-old life.
And was trained according to the religion to think of it as an evil
as
thing.
a sin. These are people who are doing something that is harmful to themselves and everyone around them. This is the training. And so but I was like, let's just make this easy. So how do you feel about two women kissing? And he was kind of like obviously would like that.
Yes.
Right. And I was like, you know what that means?
No problem with that.
Yeah, you would love to see two women kissing. You know what that means about you? And he was like, oh no, this is, in his mind, I know he's thinking this is the part where he gets bitch slapped by my cognitive privilege that I'm okay with the gay and he's not okay with the gay, so he's a homophobe.
No, you're just one of those woke bastards.
Woke snowflake.
Yeah.
And I was like, that means you're straight. It just means you're straight. If you don't like guys. But because he feels like he has to defend his definition of himself, he's never had to think of himself as a straight man. He's just thought of himself as a man.
Right.
But now that he's aware of LGBTQ, he's starting to have to add definitions to his identity. I'm not just a man.
Which is new.
I'm not just a man. I'm a straight man.
Right.
And you get there's some natural defensiveness with...
Don't make me add more words to my self-definition.
Even though you're not changing your definition of yourself, it feels like you're changing your definition of yourself. And with that comes pushback.
Yeah.
Like, well, but I don't want any gay. And it's like, that's okay because you're straight. And that week we had the honor of interviewing Samantha Brown.
Right.
LGBTQ plus warrior. She's been around the block.
From way back when.
Yeah. She was at the Stonewall riots. She's lived in New York City and LA. Got kicked out of the house at an early age. Has been an activist for a long period of time.
On many different fronts.
And went through a very understandable angry period and has come out the other side and is willing to be someone that puts her energy towards educating people who don't have exposure and could learn if they weren't put in a position where they need to defend themselves.
Right.
So that was a really great interview.
Yes.
Then we talked about cryptocurrency.
Very interesting episode.
With Damon Taylor.
Still just got the toe dipped into the idea.
I know, right?
Still learning stuff.
Still learning stuff. So I got...
We'll have more episodes on that coming up because I think it's an emerging part of society.
Yeah.
And I feel like what's going on with cryptocurrency, and I didn't get it when we did the show, but I'm starting to get it as I'm doing little perusals.
Oh, really?
Between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm starting to get is this cryptocurrency and the technologies, it's the phrase I keep hearing, the technologies around them, is gonna be like what the internet was in the 90s. There's going to be some early adapters.
Mm-hmm. And then people who join on, like Disney, who put off.
Yeah. So I feel like it's, well, not just as currency, but just whatever this technology is, this way to crowdsource and to support, this way to decentralize banking so that companies are being supported by people who want to support them and their technology. Mm-hmm. And then that grows power, which then helps this. It's really interesting to me, and I haven't got my head wrapped around it yet, but I feel like it's important. I feel like it's important for me to understand what this emerging language is and this emerging technology is, because it is going to take over.
Yeah. It's like
going
a
to
tide.
redefine society.
We can't all see it yet, but it is on its way.
Yeah.
And it is going to be a new technology like the fucking Apple Watch. It's just happening.
Not like the Apple Watch, like the internet.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a new set.
A new wave.
Yeah, of
something.
technology that has the potential to transform so many different things.
So I'm doing some post-orthodoxy investments just for kicks.
Yeah.
And the app that I chose to do our post-orthodoxy trial investments for our ongoing digital asset conversation.
Yeah.
I chose Voyager, which has a really fun screen where it shows you all of the markets going up and down in real time, which is funny because I guess I'm a asset trader now.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So I started off, I deposited $200 into my Voyager account for post-orthodoxy. My eventual plan is to own $100 worth of Dogecoin and $100 worth of Shiba Inu coin.
Okay.
Arr! Dogfight.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is I'm watching the market, and when the market dips, I get a little bit. And when it goes back up, I don't. And then so I'm doing it in $10 increments. Okay. And there was a dip last week where everything went down, as markets do, and I got $10 of Dogecoin and $10 of Shiba Inu coin, and they both proceeded to dip even further down to like $8.50. $8.50 worth of Dogecoin, and I was like, oh no, my investment. But now it's up. So right now I have almost $11 worth of my Shiba coin is worth almost $11. That's
so you've made $1.
I've made $1.16.
So if you'd just thrown $100,000 in,
I would have made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if only I had capital. Because having money makes money. Yeah. It's really hard to make money if you don't already have money. It's really fucking hard. You can't even get a job unless you have money to go buy the uniform for your job. Like, think about it. So anyway, right now I have 39.6 Dogecoin, and the value of the Dogecoin goes up and down as the market fluctuates. So that 39.6 Dogecoin may eventually be worth $100,000, but right now it's only worth $10.16.
All right.
And then I have 1,360,544 Shiba Inu coins.
Wow.
Which are right now only worth $11.
For all of those.
For 1,360,544 Shiba Inu coins.
Where are you going to keep all that?
In my pocket. But as we have seen with markets since time immemorial, and also with Bitcoin markets, cryptocurrency markets, if you're following them at all, is things can just take off and pop. Like if I had bought Dogecoin 6 months ago, I would be in a much different place right now. Right. And so I'm just sort of easing my way in slowly.
There's a lot. It's not just Doge, Ethereum, and Bitcoin.
No, there are a lot.
Hundreds of different technologies coming up.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let me go to my last. So that was great. And Damon's been doing a lot of research about
the guest on our show
into digital assets. Yes. Yeah. And he gave us a great breakdown and just talking about like the history of finance and the future of finance and how to think like a wealthy person instead of thinking like a poor person, which is very asshole clenchy,
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Anal retentive.
Then we talked about drugs.
One of my favorite subjects.
It's so much fun. I love talking about drugs, and I realized this last week why I love talking about it, because it's not so personal as all the stuff we usually address on Post-Orthodoxy.
Yeah, drugs aren't necessarily your identity, like religion is, or politics, or genetics.
Everybody's heard things about them, and some people even have strong opinions or have had strongly positive or strongly negative experiences with substances like alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, LSD, etc.
Right.
However, you're not as likely to get up in arms exploring the concept of the U.S. drug war and psychedelics and things as you might
these days.
As you might discussing the concepts around religion and the existence of God.
The way they're doing the pandemic narrative here, where it's like you just have to do the thing, or you're evil who wants to kill grandmother. They did that in the 80s with the drug war. Just say no to drugs was like you had to be actively anti-drug.
Yeah,
you can't
you couldn't
be
just
on the fence.
Not care.
You can't not say it, otherwise you're suspect.
Right.
It's very similar.
Right.
Now that I think about it.
Interesting.
So back then, you couldn't, like Bill Hicks, one of these comedians that openly discussed that maybe drugs are not a good or bad thing.
Right. They aren't. Like, for one thing,
that's what I'm saying.
Let me just be real radical.
He opened up that idea of like maybe not all drugs should be thought of the same way, in the way that not all mammals should be thought of as the same thing. So anyway, he was one of those guys that did that came out and was willing to go against the political correctness of the day and say, no, I actually have done drugs and I've had a great time.
Yeah, that's what Bill Hicks said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he does jokes about the downside of not being able to find your car in the morning or whatever. But he's obviously being flippant, and there's many different kinds of drugs, but we only hear about, in the propaganda, it's always the worst case scenario, and we never hear about the best case scenario where people are having
life-changing conversations.
Life-changing, positive, psychologically enhanced
being able to dance for the
lifestyles
first time because they're
all
not
those
as
things.
terrified.
Curing yourself of alcoholism. and
It's
so on and
okay
so
to
forth.
do this on alcohol,
Yeah.
but because of social and political brainwashing, it's not okay to do that on Molly.
So it's easier to have that conversation now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be having it more often.
Our guest last week was Krista Kelly.
Yep.
She's been in catering, like elite catering for like cruise ships and resorts and princesses.
Royalty.
For like the last 30 years and film catering for the last 16 years. In fact, a film that she worked on just recently went to the Tribeca Film Festival, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
It was an official selection of Tribeca. And we talked about cannabis, and we just like had this whole yummy cannabis show just talking about how marijuana is a culturally insensitive and racist ploy.
Well, the name.
The
marijuana.
word marijuana,
The word.
marijuana, was specifically propagated by the U.S. government during the drug war to further destabilize white people's perceptions of cannabis because
they used
were
to call it
associated.
cannabis when they put it in medicines
Yeah.
and stuff. But
Like,
they called
you know,
it marijuana
this-
whenever they needed to also connect
Connect
hemp
it with the Mexicans.
with hemp too,
Oh, gotcha.
which is the whole Randolph Hearst thing
Which are-
where he
they're
made
different
hemp.
plants.
I know, but he had to connect hemp with marijuana so that he could kill the hemp industry, so that the lumber industry got more shares of newspaper print
Yeah.
or paper sales.
Hillbilly thinks that with China outlawing digital assets and the U.S. releasing their own digital currency, that the cryptocurrency boom is not going to be a thing. He thinks that fiat currency, U.S. dollar fiat currency, is just going to scoop right into the digital asset market and take it over.
Well, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I'd like to read, if you have any news articles that you've read about
Yeah.
that, please share a link. You're not the only person that's skeptical of this new technology. It's not just digital asset investing. There are, each coin is also part of a computer, like, how do I describe this? Like a computer world. Like each coin comes from its own realm, like Tron. So
Right,
imagine
right.
if there's Tron, and then there's Tron's neighbor, Ron, and then there's Ron's neighbor, Braun, you know, and so there's all these kingdoms, right? All these digital computer, because we understand Tron. It's a kingdom inside the computer.
Right.
Right? It's
right,
a world
right.
inside the
Okay,
computer.
Okay.
It's a way of understanding how the computer and the network is working, right?
Okay.
It was an early internet thing.
Right.
So like each cryptocurrency is associated with its own digital kingdom, which has its own rules and its own supply chains.
That's
and
so
it's-
patriarchal.
Is it?
Kingdom.
Oh my God, you're completely derailing my
Sorry.
my
Sorry.
metaphor.
Sorry.
Anyway, you get the idea, or if you don't, you probably don't care. Whatever. Moving on. And that brings us up to today. Yes, but how did we get here?
How did we get here?
But how did we get here?
No, I'm interested. Yes, if you have any articles saying that
With like graphs and sources and charts and things. 'Cause I'm watching a lot of graphs.
or with people who know more than us talking about it.
Yeah.
Would
Sure thing.
happy to check it out.
Absolutely. So that's the first quarter, quote unquote. It's obviously not the
Yeah.
first half of season 1 because that's only April, May,
Right,
June. That's only 2 months.
We've warmed up the microphones. I just sent a note to Mokai this evening to try to set up a date
Yes, let's talk
So we
about
can
some
get
of the people
Mokai
we have coming up next.
back on the machine. And Jason Silverstein, my friend Jason in Hawaii, has agreed to be a guest on the show. And we may talk about post-Orthodox agriculture. He was sort of my guru, one of my gurus in Hawaii when I was running the only organic landscape nursery in the state of Hawaii. He was running his own little enterprise where he had, it was a tropical paradise, 14 different kinds of bananas, coffee, cacao, taro, lilikoi, passion fruit, all the stuff. He just had food growing all over his entire farm. But we talked a lot about the politics of farming and the idea of, so we may have him come on the show
That'll
and
be
talk
fun.
about that. Or something completely different. I don't know yet.
We also have Andrea Crossguns coming up.
Oh, nice.
Looking through all the guests that we had for our first 2 months, I'm not mad about the guests, and this is where we have to separate ourselves from being defensive, right? I'm not defensive about the first several guests that we have, but it's a lot of white men.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to diversifying because we live on a very diverse planet, and I think it's important to be hearing more broad spectrum voices and experiences.
We're also open to suggestions from the audience.
Yeah, if you have somebody you think
who
we should
you would
interview,
like to see on the show.
Yeah, let us know. I'm not afraid to go hunt down somebody famous too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's launch our website first.
I don't mean hunt them down physically. I mean if somebody on watching today wants us to go and interview so and so, I will reach out to them. I am not afraid. I will do it.
I want to interview George Bush.
Senior or junior?
Senior's dead, I think.
No, he's not.
Okay.
W.
Yeah, W. I want to interview W.
Really?
Yeah. I have questions.
He would never be allowed to come on our show. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in today, guys, to this recap. Our guest on Thursday is Harold Cranberry. Ironically, or coincidentally, he was our guest this date last year, back when we were still in KBMF. You can watch that video on the Post-Orthodoxy Facebook page if you want to, as a prequel to our conversation with Harold today. But the audio was horrible, and KBMF has since scrubbed our radio shows from the website, so it's very hard to find good quality audio of that show. But we're going to have good quality audio on Thursday at 5 p.m. because of this beautiful studio that our listeners helped us build.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into the show.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys.
We'll see you on Thursday.
Woohoo!